Hello everyone. So in this video, we will present the essay on the links between socioeconomic inequalities and inclusive growth, evidence from MENA region. So this study was prepared by Brahim, Oussama, Ritahi, and Abdellah. So the relationship between inequality and economic growth has been primary main concerns for many economists, but the nature of the relationship remains elusive. Ideally, while it is assumed that economic growth benefits the poor on the same terms as the rich, the process of wealth creation is usually accompanied by dynamic changes in the distribution of its dividends. So in this study, we have used panel data of Middle East and North African countries. So the time period ranges between 1990 and 2020. So in this study, we investigate the relationship between economic growth and inequality, as well as the relationship between them and the other variables, such as human capital, investment, population, as well. So this is just sets of definitions. Moving to literature review. The traditional growth theory establishes a direct relationship between economic growth and living standards. The first thesis, developed by Kuznets, states that the relationship between GDP per capita and inequality is in the form of an inverted U-shaped curve. But several theoretical models have studied the impact of distribution of resources with economic growth. So the first postulates the existence of positive relationship between equality and growth. The second one identifies the negative effects of unequal distribution of resources on growth prospects. So in the empirical analysis, we have three points of view. The first one is that inequality is good for growth, which is supported by Adelman and Robinson, Lee and Zhu, Diniger and Square. Second one is supported mainly by Person and Tabilini, Alizina, and Roderick Clark. They said that inequality is bad for growth. The last one is that no link between inequality and growth, which is supported by Barrow and OECD expert. So for methodology and selection of variables, so we present in this table the list of variables that we have used in this study, as well as their sources. So in the first analysis, we have conducted a principal component analysis to identify the main groups of countries we have. Then we will move on to the econometrics analysis by performing unit root tests. After that, we performed a long-run relationship between the variables test, which is called the co-integration test. And the final step is that we run the regression model and verify the causality between the variables. So we have the, in this slide as well, we present the general function that we have used in this study, as well as the estimated long-run model equation. So in the PCI analysis, so we have identified two main groups of countries. So the first one is the North African countries. We have Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania, Tunisia, and Egypt. And the second group of countries, we have Ireland, Saudi, and all other Middle Eastern countries. Moving to preliminary tests, we have unit retest. So we have used basically 4 tests: Levin, Lin, and True, and Sheen, ADF Fisher chi-square test, as well as Hadri test. So by performing these tests, we have concluded that all the variables are stationary at the first difference, with one exception for population variable, which is stationary at the level. After that, we can conclude we can use a co-integration test to check the long-run relationship between the variables for the two sets of countries. In this case, the Causality residual co-integration test shows a p-value less than 5%, which confirms the existence of long-run relationship between the variables for the two sets of countries. After running the VSM model based on the co-integration test, since we have a long-run relationship, so we can use a VSM model, a vectorial correction model, uh, to establish the relationship between the variables. So here we have two regression models. The first one is for the North African countries, and the second one is for the Middle Eastern countries. For the first group, which is the North African countries, we can conclude that there is a negative relationship between economic growth and the Gini index. So we can say that the increase in production in the local economy of these countries favors in the long run the distribution of income in the community. So for the second group of countries, we saw an inverse context. We have that a positive relationship between income inequality and economic growth. So economic growth can cause income inequality to increase in these countries. Moving to causality tests, so the results of Granger test that was used to check the causality test for North African countries, we can see that there is an evidence of causality between the two variables for Gini and economic growth. But for the Middle East countries, the causality is not significant at 5%. So just to resume, so we have used the principal component analysis to confirm that we have two groups of countries that we will use in the econometric modeling. After that, we used the vector error correction model based on the preliminary tests using the unit root test and co-integration test. The VSM vector error correction model proves that there is a positive relationship between economic growth and income inequality for Middle Eastern countries, but the relationship is negative for the North African countries. So the error correction term associated with the vector error correction model is statistically significant at 1% for the two sets of countries. Moving to the causal relationship between economic growth and income inequality. So for the North African countries, we can say that there is a Granger causality between the two variables for the first one, for the first group, but it is not significant for the second group of countries. Thank you very much for your time to read our paper, and thank you.